Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Story Edge. I am here with the awesome Tamryn Dicks. She is, well, she'll describe what she does, but Tamryn, I'm connected with her through a network that we have, and we ended up having such an awesome conversation around burnout and around just like what we've learned in the market, while being business owners and trying to really find purpose in what we do, and at the same time grow a meaningful business. So welcome, Tamryn. I'm so excited to have this chat with you today.
Thanks, Marlon. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So like, look, Tamryn, just so you help people with burnout specifically, you know, and I think many people misinterpret or don't understand what that really means. What is burnout from your perspective?
Sure. It's quite a big question, because I mean the clinical definition of burnout is basically reaching a point of exhaustion where you are overwhelmed and overworked and you just collapse, essentially.
But that's like the severe side, right? Of where like we absolutely collapse.
The collapse is most definitely the end point of the burnout. Yes. When it's beginning, you're not collapsing. You just feel yourself slowly fizzling out. But yes, it is something that is actually often not recognized, especially in business owners, because we're used to dealing with high stress situations. You know, when you open a business, you get overwhelmed with a whole bunch of things that you weren't expecting. When you go into business, you don't realize that there's going to be things that you have to do that you didn't even know those roles existed before you open a business. So, you know, there's a bit of a trial by fire no matter what business you open, and it's stressful. So as a business owner, you are used to dealing with stressful situations. You're used to working long hours and putting in that extra and pushing a little bit harder. And in the beginning, it's fine. And if you take good rest periods, it continues to be fine. But you can get into the habit of pushing too hard, and especially if you're hitting bumps in the business where things aren't going the way you expected, you'll find yourself just pushing harder again in the belief that that's going to fix things. And then that's when burnout creeps up on you, because you're going to just think, oh, this is just a high stress period like before. And you won't necessarily recognize that you are actually burning out, not just feeling stressed.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so what are some signals, because you mentioned a few there, like, but what are some signals that, you know, that I'm beginning to burn out, that I'm not, you know, let's just say firing on all cylinders?
Look, the most common symptoms of burnout are that you begin to lose your joy in what you're doing. So you're going to start losing that spark. You know, the whole reason you started your business was you were excited about something. And you might find that all of a sudden you're waking up in the morning and dragging yourself to work instead of leaping up to go do something that excites you. That's normally the first sign. But one of the most typical symptoms of burnout as well is an increased cynicism about everything. So you're going to start seeing the negative side of most things. You're going to start withdrawing from people and friends and things that you used to enjoy doing. You know, you just feel like you don't have the energy to do something that actually used to really bring you joy. I mean, even something as simple as reading a book. I know I'm a big bookworm. I love reading. And in the height of my burnout, I didn't want to read it. I didn't even feel like it. I didn't even feel like reading a book. It just felt like too much. So I think those are, and that's warning signs that people can look out for, is have you lost joy in the things that used to really make you happy? Because then you've got to rethink why.
Yeah, 100%. it's very, very interesting you mentioned that, because as you were saying that, I was really thinking of moments in my life when I've been burnt out, and something else like that I actually realize is when you struggle to stay focused on that thing that when you're just like sort of reading information and it's just getting stuck right here, it's not going in anywhere, and you just, like you said, don't feel like doing anything. Those I remember those feelings very well. And the thing is, it's tough, especially if you are a business owner, or if you like this single entrepreneur, that, well, you either have a team that you have to still motivate and still push and still get things done, or or you're by yourself trying to do all those things. It becomes so hard to detach yourself, or to change the tack, because there's been this, you've only know one way, right? So, but before we like continue down this road, what made you try and help people in this space? Because I think I don't think it's spoken about enough. I don't think we're talking enough about burnout. I mean, now we're in this new culture of really trying to focus on employee wellness and people wellness, and focus on what is, because now it's about purpose. It's a lot more about purpose than ever before. And so these are really important topics. How did you get into this?
Well, very literally just by burning out way too many times. My last bout of burnout was my worst, and it actually resulted in a breakdown. So that I think it sounds awful, but it was actually a good thing for me, because it made me step back and go, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep cycling through this burnout and then having a little bit of a break or a little bit of a holiday and then sort of feeling normal and thinking that's okay, I'm back to me, but I'm actually not. I'm just in this lull of a downward spiral. And it made me realize that I had this misconception that if I just work harder, everything will come right. If you just put in those extra hours, if I hustle a little bit harder, if I add another client, if I learn to type faster or read faster or something and just get more done in my day, then I can fix what's going wrong. And when I stepped back and looked at everything, and I had to ask myself, what do I actually want out of life? What am I doing this for? Why am I pushing so hard? And it makes you just reevaluate what your priorities are and why you started this whole thing in the first place, and what it is you're looking for. Most of us, when we start a business, yes, there's purpose. There's always purpose, and purpose is very important because it carries you through the hard times. But I think most people open a business for the freedom. They think that if they run their own thing, they're not answering to anyone. They're going to have a life of freedom. And it's actually always a shock to the system when you discover you work harder, much, much harder as a business owner than you do as an employee.
Yeah, so I mean, like, that's so very interesting. And just talking about purpose, it sounds very fluffy though, that whole thing of, I know you said like, it's I guess when we get into times of difficulty, it's always important to know why. What are we aiming for? And I know, like, especially today with the teachers that I have, most people are like, they like really tune into your purpose, tune into why you want to do, why you even intending on building this business for so long. And well, because we're not building this business, because what ends up happening is you're going to get into trouble. There's going to be roadblocks along the way. And when that happens, you need to be able to push through. That's one thing. And then what about if you're the roadblock? What if you are not in the right place to be able to actually take on these problems and persevere with your business? So I guess it also at the same time is a very fluffy space, purpose and why and all that stuff. How important is it, and like, how do we actually start to actually discover purpose, and how will we actually know when we got it?
Sure, that's a big question. You know, I don't think it's as easy as people think. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why this whole story of purpose, I think, has come to the forefront, is that it's not something people think of. And especially when starting a business, you do have a purpose. You do have something that drives you, something that makes you want to start up this thing. Even actually, if you work for someone and you have an idea for a project, which is like a little mini business, being an intrapreneur, you have something that drives it. There's some reason why you are passionate about that thing, and you won't necessarily actually spend time asking yourself why. You just leap into doing that thing. So yes, it is very fluffy and it's very unknown. And I think a lot of people leap into business because they're good at something more than because they want to change the world. You know. So
Yeah.
and then they don't want to admit that when they're talking to other business owners or you know, on a podcast like this. You don't want to admit that I mean, I literally opened my business out of blind dumb luck. Me personally, I wasn't looking to open a business. I was working for someone else. I was quite happy in my career. The most change I was intending to make at that point in time was to just move to another job which paid me more. That was the only aspirations I had at the time. And I had an opportunity fall into my lap. My dad knew someone, he had a business associate who owned more than one business, who wasn't happy with his bookkeeper, and my dad was like, quote him. And I was like, are you nuts? And I must say, actually, that's the side note I should also make. I hope everyone listening to this has someone like my dad who believes in them enough to think that they are the best. I mean, you know, yes, he's my dad, so obviously he thinks I'm wonderful, but he thinks I'm the best accountant the world has ever seen. And of course he's wrong, but I do try to be good at what I do. But he pushed me to do this quote, and I thought, well, you know, I'll submit the quote and life goes on, and it got accepted. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have a client, you know. And then I was so excited about that I was dumb enough to quit my job and start a business, which, you know, just shows that I maybe don't always think things through. But so for me, it was just dumb luck. It was just dumb luck. And it was just sudden realization that I could do this for myself. I didn't have to do this for someone else. I could do it for me. And as I say, there was this the drive was actually freedom, which I didn't get.
No, 100%. And so it was so funny. Like, I was watching, where was I seeing this? Probably on TikTok somewhere, or somewhere. I can't remember. Anyways, I saved it as a video, and then this person, they panning, and they're like, oh, I decided I just started I did this business so that I could you know, get freedom. And oh, what a stupid idea that was. You know, because it's like, oh, I'm freaking 18 hours a day or whatever. But you know, and I had the same conversation with somebody. We're having a braai and we're talking, and they hate their job, right? So they hate their job. Unlike you, where you're actually enjoying what you're doing and you weren't planning on moving, but like, this person hates what they were doing. And they were like, no, you know what? I really love to do cooking. And I was like, okay, great. And they were like, I'm going to start a cooking business. I was like, I don't think you should. And they looked at me and they're like, but you're a business. Why did you? I was like, no, I think if you go out and just start your cooking business, that's the biggest mistake you could ever make. But why? You know, let's jump a little bit into why. Why is it? I mean, why was that such a big mistake for you when you got a client? And I mean, most people don't even understand. They will go out and they'll start this business without even a client. They'll maybe go and buy a whole bunch of inventory, have 0 clients, and think that they're going to grow something big. So just tell us, Tamryn, why?
There were so many reasons why. I mean, there's so many, and this is how my burnout happened, and these are the things I had to fix over time, was my lack of knowledge of how business works. You know, you this is the problem, I think, with going from employee to business owner as well, is as an employee you have a very specific role and you only need to be good at your core skill. I was a good accountant, so I did well in my job, and I had just been elevated as well to a supervisory position. We got some junior staff in, so I was in a good position. I was managing people and, you know, delegating and project managements and all sorts of things. I had one or two little projects that I ran in the company that weren't even related. You know, I did things like the company events just because I thought they were fun. So I thought, you know, with that knowledge, with that experience, I would be able to run a business, but you don't realize how much goes into running a business, how
Yeah.
many roles you are going to have to fill as especially if you go alone. I mean, even if you are lucky enough to start with a partner, which I did in a second business, which we can maybe touch on later, but even then, you're only two people, you're only one person filling the role of tea lady, cleaner, janitor, marketer, salesperson, customer care, HR, operations, logistics, you know, everything. You're doing
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
accounting, finance, admin. The whole lot is now on you because you are this entire business. And the biggest problem with that, I think, is that you actually end up spending less and less time on the thing you're good at. And that causes two things. Is first of all, is a terrible sense of overwhelm because you've just got too much to wade through. And secondly, you start to lose your joy because you're doing things you're not good at. You're not doing the thing that you loved in the first place. So I think there is a big misconception in people that if you run your own business, you can do something you love for yourself. And yes, you can, but you also have to do a whole bunch of things you really don't love, and actually you might be bad at, which can really not help your self-esteem. And I mean, you know, your expertise is marketing. So you know how hard it is actually to make people aware of a new business and get them to trust it and get them to try that service or that product. It's not easy. You know, people don't just go, oh, there's something new, I'll try it. They need to be convinced that it's worth trying. So yeah, I think a lot of people leap into running a business, and like I was lucky and I had a client. But then you have to keep that client, you have to keep them happy. And also that client actually only represented 40% of the salary I was earning at the time. So I am a bit of a risk taker by nature. So I was willing to leap in with both feet for 40% of my salary. But the result of that is that you have to hustle, because now this client is not enough. I do need more. And then when you're faced with all these things that are overwhelming you, you also begin to doubt yourself. And I had other self-esteem issues related to my career. I was a good accountant, but I fell into accounting by accident, very much like business ownership. Apparently I bumble into a lot of things. And as a result, I actually wasn't officially qualified. I didn't do an accounting degree. I fell into bookkeeping by accident. I did bookkeeping for a while, and I was like, oh, this is fun. And then I started studying it in the evenings. And by the time I opened my business, my official qualification was actually senior bookkeeper. I was still busy with my accounting qualification. And then you undervalue yourself, because I think I can't tell people I'm an accountant, even though I can do the work.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that I can charge for it if I don't have these letters behind my name. And so there were a lot of mistakes I made there as well, in terms of not charging a high enough fee. And then when you go in too low, it's very difficult to raise the fee later on. If you're in a service business and you've been dealing with someone for a year, and you suddenly tell them, well, actually the work I do for you is worth 3 times more, they get upset.
Yeah.
Understandably.
No, 100%. I actually had that exact experience where I lost all my clients. I literally went I was charging them this amount. I had this boost of confidence through some certification I ended up getting. Went back to all my clients and said, listen, this is my new rates. And they were like, we're out of here. There's no way we're gonna pay your stupid amounts. Cheers. And literally I had to start from scratch overnight.
Oh, that's so scary.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's these challenges that we face, you know, and I think I just did them. And again, as I say, my incorrect thought process was, well, just work harder, just work harder, just work harder. And then I opened that second business that I was telling you about with a friend, and you think it's going to, well, first of all, I thought this is a great idea because 2 businesses, there's 2 incomes, I'm spreading my risk. I'm, you know, I've got 2 assets, and in the second one I have a partner, so it's not going to be as difficult. And I've been running my other one, I think I've been running my other one for 8 years, 8 or 10 years, something like that. So I was like, you know, I've got the experience. And 2 businesses, if you're lucky, 2 businesses will mean 2 incomes, but what they definitely mean is 2 workloads, 2 sets of overwhelm, and 4 times the stress that you had before. Yeah. So and that was actually the catalyst for that last round of burnout that was so bad for me, because I was essentially 100% of my accounting business at the time, and I was 50% of this new business, and I just couldn't do it all, you know, and I just kept trying to work harder and collapsed. So, and I think that's why that phase of stepping backwards and going, no, hang on, what am I doing wrong? Why, you know, with all this hard work, am I not actually getting anywhere? And it was the realization that working hard is good. You need to work hard, and no business is going to succeed if you don't. But working harder, if you're working the wrong way, gets you nowhere. You also have to assess how you're working, how you're running things, what processes you're using, what systems you have in place, how you are setting up things in your business to actually run without you. And that is the mistake I think a lot of business owners make. They don't realize they quit their job, they open a business, and all they do is create a new job for themselves. It's something that is 100% reliant on them. In order for a business to be successful, it must actually be its own entity. It must be able to run like a separate machine. So if you are sick, or you need to go on holiday, or you want to step back for a day, it will continue to run without you. That is when you've created a business. Before then, all you have is a job.
There's a lot that in what you've just shared, and I have a few questions, some of which just like escape my mind, but so I totally agree with everything you're saying, but let's just say I'm in a, because for example, if you're in burnout and it's not necessarily working, right? So business is not working. Maybe it did at some point, but isn't now. You know, the hustle hard got it to a point where it's working, and then, you know, something went wrong. So now we're sliding backwards in income. You know, the hustle hard thing is really hard now because we're already down and trying to pick ourselves up. It's like there already feels like there's a weight. How do you know? And especially now we've just had, I'd say we are re-emerging from COVID depressed economy. I feel that people are more emotionally and mentally equipped to take on whatever may, you know, coming forward from something like from COVID specifically. But I'm not sure what your thoughts are about that, but like, how does one, now we've been knocked down, how do we get up and start really thinking smarter? Because it's almost like starting off again from ground zero, especially in that case.
Well, it's a brilliant question, because I mean, that's I personally had to do that from the point of view that I with the proper I say breakdown, but it didn't actually end up in hospital, but which is what it sounds like. But I was not able to cope with my day to day at that point. So at that point, yes, the business was still okay. So it's not quite from starting from scratch with your business, but I was not. I couldn't continue, and so I was still starting from ground level with myself, if that makes sense. And I think in both cases, whether it's you that has just run out of juice, or your business that has run out of juice, you actually need to do the same thing. You need to take time to create space for you, because one of the biggest problems with pushing and pushing and pushing is that you run yourself dry. And when you run yourself dry, your ability to cope, your ability to think, your ability to be creative and to plan and to pivot and to react to circumstances, that runs dry. And so now when you're bleeding customers, or you're bleeding sales, or the market has changed. I mean, that happened for a lot of people last year. They had these wonderfully successful businesses that ran off people walking into their stores. And suddenly there's COVID and there's lockdown and there's no customers. And what do? Your business was perfectly functional and now it's non-existent. So you've got to be able to look at that and go, okay, well, what I was doing before was not working and I need to change what I'm doing. You're not going to be able to do that if you are mentally burnt out. You're just going to stare at the problem and probably actually just trying to repeat your old practices, because that's all your brain knows at this point. When you're at that stage where you've depleted yourself, you actually are in your brain, actually your body recognizes that state as the fight or flight response. You're living in a state of
survival,
life or death, according to your central nervous system. And what happens when you're in that state is that your brain switches off all the activities it doesn't consider necessary for survival. And in a survival situation, in a life or death situation, you're being chased by a lion, you don't really need to brainstorm in that situation. You need to run. So, although actually that's bad advice, but that's another story. Don't run from lions, they just chase. But when you are in a life or death situation, you're not going to stop and be creative. That's not what your brain needs at that point in time. It needs you to run, or it needs you to fight. And so when you've put yourself in this constant stress situation, that's where your brain thinks you are. Your brain thinks you are in a life or death situation. And so it shuts down all these side activities that it doesn't consider necessary. But those ones are actually what is necessary for your business to move forward. You need to be able to engage your creative thinking. You need to be able to think outside of the box and brainstorm and come up with alternatives and different ways of doing and seeing and evaluating your current processes and checking where the efficiencies are falling short. You're actually incapable of doing that when you are in a state of burnout. So if you have reached that point where you are overwhelmed, tired and drained, and now your business is suffering as a result, you can't fix it without taking a step back and looking after yourself. So that was something I learned, is by pulling myself out of that situation and going, I actually can't do this anymore, so I'm not going to. And I put a whole bunch of contingencies in place, and I just removed myself. And there's a financial knock, obviously, when you do something like that. But I recognized that my mental health was important enough to prioritize it. And I actually spent a year or two doing the bare minimum, just the absolute bare minimum. Do something and then switch off for the day and go and just relax. Go sit outside in the sunshine, read a book. If I didn't feel like reading, I would literally just sit in the sun until I felt better. And after, it took me a long time because my burnout was pretty severe. But after doing that for a while, my ability to create came back. My ability to think and to reason through the problems and to look at what I was doing and how I was doing things and go, hang on, I can do this differently. I can put this system in place. I can try this approach. I can launch a new service, or I can try this new project. And I wanted to, because that's a big thing as well. That came back. And I mean, as I say, my situation was very severe, but it still happens. Even in the beginning stages of burnout, you are losing your ability to think creatively. And that was my second lesson, actually. So the first one is working harder doesn't help if you're working the wrong way. And my second one was that your health, your business health, is directly proportional to your own health. You are your business. So if you do not look after yourself, it doesn't matter how much money, how many sales your business is making, or how much profit is sitting in your bank account. It doesn't matter, because if you're not looking after you and you collapse, it will not take long for the business to collapse afterwards. So you actually need to be looking after yourself as a business owner.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So okay, let's talk a little bit about, let's just say we need to now get this thing kind of running by itself. What does that look like? Okay, but first I want to go back. You mentioned something so funny that is so true. A friend of mine actually also, he reminded me also, he's like, the biggest problem with business owners, or small business owners especially, is that when a business is not working, what do we go and do? We start a new business. And it's just such, it's madness. Because you have one thing that doesn't work, and you just go and try and do another thing that won't work either. So you got this like, it's madness, like it's like we perpetuate it.
Yes, you know what it is, Marlon. If that is your response to a battling business, is to open a new one, congratulations, you're an entrepreneur. Because what defines an entrepreneur is being able to see an opportunity and having the passion to pursue it. That is the difference between an entrepreneur and a business owner, because they're not always the same thing. And the thing is that an entrepreneur is not necessarily a good business owner. Yeah. So you can constantly see opportunities, and you constantly get excited by a new idea, some of which are really good. But if you don't have the knowledge on how to actually implement a business, how to set the foundations of an organization and create something that is actually self-sustaining, if you don't have that knowledge, you will consistently just start new ideas that collapse. And sometimes it's because your idea wasn't as good as you think it is. But more often than not, it's because you didn't set it up correctly, not because you had a bad idea. Yeah. And the value of having solid systems and processes was definitely something that I also had to learn, is understanding that you need, I don't even know how to word this, you need to have things running systematically in your business. And it's also something that entrepreneurs battle with. You if you are a creative person and you're constantly seeing new ideas and new opportunities, you're probably going to battle to focus those down into set steps and systems and processes that are set and formulated. That is difficult to do for a creative mind. You also feel that if you do that, you've restricted yourself and you've stopped the creativity. So it's difficult to see that balance where you need your steps and your systems and your processes that the business runs on, that creates an organization that is replicable. You need those, but you need to put them in a framework of creativity so that you and your team are free to look at these systems and processes on a regular basis and go, are they working? Can they be better? Can we change something? Is this product worth it? Shall we just pivot? You've got to actually have both sides of that equation. So you've got to have the core system, and you have to have the freedom to change it if it's necessary.
And I love the way we've just led into this, because the need, so the need for systems, the need for building something that sort of runs without you. I mean, you had that experience, right? So you managed to shift your one business where it doesn't need your eye or your expertise all the time, right? Let's talk about that, because you kind of mentioned like how you did it. You know, you got your processes, you got your systems, and okay, you're not necessarily in the most creative of spaces. Not that you can't do creative accounting, but
Yeah, but you shouldn't.
Exactly. So one of those things recommended not to do, or not to hire someone that does. But but it's a business. So the idea is, if you can make something run in a very, and especially today, we're in the space where you need to automate as much you can, we have the technology to automate, right? So how are you going to automate if you don't understand, if you don't know what's supposed to happen next, if you can't tell the machine this is the next thing that needs to happen? How do you even hire if you don't have this next thing so that someone needs to do? Or I mean, should that person get ill or not be able to come into work or just abscond, somebody needs to take their place and needs to do the job like them or better. So how does one do that if they don't have these processes? So let's talk a little bit about processes. And I mean, like, is it as boring as it sounds? Like, I have to literally say pick up pen, write on this sheet. Like, how does it go? What does that look like?
Yes, it can be very boring. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that one. Look, when I recognized the need for these things in my business, I did sit down, pick up not a pen, keyboard.
Sure.
And I just sat and typed and typed and typed. It took me a combined, if you add up all the hours, probably about 3 days to create an internal policies and procedures document that, if this happens, this is what you do. If this happens, this is what you do. This is the software we use. This is the steps that you follow to do a specific, right from how you contact a prospect client, to how you conduct a meeting, to how you try and convert, to quoting, retainers, onboarding, everything. And it took me days to get that finished. But I'm also a bit slow in terms of technology adoption. I tend to be wary of things I don't understand. So I learn them slowly. So at the time, that's what I did. I just sat down and I typed it all into Word. Now, what I would recommend anyone who needs to create systems, what they do is use something like Zoom and a transcript service. There's some free ones that interact with Zoom. They're not as clever as the paid ones. So, depending on how much you're looking to get into writing, you might consider a paid option. But just switch on Zoom, have a meeting with yourself, and talk through the way you want things done in your business, or the way that you think they should happen in your business. Because you'll actually find that if you haven't sat down and thought about these things, you might be doing things differently every single time. And you haven't actually taken the time to go, okay, hang on, when I met with this client and I used this approach, it worked. When I met with that client and I used this approach, it didn't work. If you don't actually sit down and evaluate what you've been doing and how, so that you can go, okay, actually, I think the best approach with this type of client or that type of business would be to structure our meetings in this way, and these are the steps. You're helping yourself, because you're actually going through what works and doesn't work. So even if it is only you in the business, it is worth going, is the way I'm doing things working? What worked, what didn't work? And actually getting that narrowed down into a step-by-step process that you can replicate every time. I mean, if you just think of cold calling, those cold calling companies that drive us insane, those poor people on the other side of the phone that everybody hates, are given scripts, and they're given scripts for a reason, because research has shown that those scripts are the most effective in getting a result. So not with everyone, but more people respond to the script than people who don't respond. And that is because over time, over trial and error, and seeing what works and following the statistics, those companies know this script works. This script gets me more returns than any other script. And that's what's given now to every new cold caller. So it's worth doing that for yourself in your own business, and not just for your marketing, for everything.
Yeah.
If you offer a particular service or something like that, work out the best, fastest, most efficient way to get the best result that you want.
If anything, what that'll do, especially just using the example of the script, it builds consistency. And consistency builds a trend. A trend is able to be monitored, and if you can monitor it, you can make it better. And it's just that simple. I mean, if you have a shop, and I find it so funny, like how, not funny, but it's just something I notice, is that when I walk into a shop, I'm not always greeted the same. In fact, I remember, like, I think it was day before yesterday, I made a phone call to was it a hardware store? And the guy picked up the phone like, hello? And I was like, whoa, wait, hold, where am I calling? I literally asked him, like, where am I calling? Because that's weird. I know where I was trying to call, but this guy picks up the phone like, hello, like it's his own personal home phone. And then I was like, wait a second, do you just tell me where am I calling? He told me, and I'm like, okay, so what time you guys open till? And he told me, I'm like, okay, thank you. And the guy was like, and he's like, bye. And I was like, whoa, like how much business are you already losing through that alone? Because they're not monitoring it, they're not paying, but I mean, they're a big enough business so they can waste that money, I guess. But again, it's like comes down to consistency, and and measurable. If you can measure it, you can improve it, right? You can pull stats on it. And we in this space, you said you're not like very quick on adopting technology, but if you've got, this is data, right? This is information. And where you've got information, you've got like a lot of power. Obviously you need to analyze that, but that's another story. So I totally agree with you.
And it's funny you're saying that, because one of the things we take people through, I have what I call the 4 Ps of business. So it's purpose, process, people, and performance. And I take you through this process, and they're in that order, because if you clarify your purpose, and we were talking about purpose earlier being very fluffy. So even quite frankly, if your purpose as the business owner is simply to have a life of freedom, that's still purpose. I don't think you need some esoteric, life-changing, world-changing purpose to have a successful business. But if you understand why you're doing something, it then helps you develop the processes that you need to create a business that provides that purpose and gives you an outcome that is in line with your values and the culture and the results that you want in your business. And once you have those in place, then you begin looking at the people. Then you begin going, okay, I need a team. I can't do this alone. Whether you outsource, which I highly recommend, especially in the beginning, or you actually hire internally. Regardless of which of those 2 options you take, you want your processes clearly defined, you want your purpose clearly defined, you want your values and your culture defined, because these people are now going to be running your business and representing you. So they need to understand what it is that you're expecting of them. So if you have those things clearly defined before you even go to the people, it makes it easier for you to find the right people, because you'll find people who immediately respond to your purpose and your processes, and you go, this is a good fit for my organization. but also it makes it easier for them to do the job in a way that you are happy with the outcome. So it's very important to follow those processes. And that poor guy answering the phone for the hardware store, I suspect either he really doesn't understand customer care at all, if he's the owner, or he was not talked through. Okay, if someone phones the store, that is a prospective client. Put on your best face, smile, invite them in, ask them if we can help them. Try and get them into the store, through the door, buying something. He wasn't talked through that process. There probably is no explanation anywhere in that store on what to do if someone phones. So you can't blame your poor little employee because he didn't look after a customer. If you never set the bounds of how you look after a customer, if you never put a value in place that every person is important, every phone call to that business might mean a sale, if you handle it correctly. If you haven't explained that, if you haven't shared that value, if you haven't got them excited over the prospect of the fact that they're building something, then it's not their fault that they handle a conversation badly. So you need to have those things in place before you try and scale. And that's, because ultimately that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to build this big successful business, and we always think of success as this growth. And I think that's something else. That's where the performance comes in, is being able to measure how your business is going, which you can only really do once you've got all of these things in place, because you can't measure something that you haven't actually defined. But
exactly.
we also lose sight of what a successful business is. I think we as a lot of business owners think that high sales mean that your business is doing well. And that is not necessarily the case at all. High sales don't necessarily equal money in the bank. They don't necessarily equal profits. They don't mean that you've got your processes and your system sorted. They just mean that you're really good at selling something. So we also misunderstand what success is. And if you can build, your business might be small. Maybe you have 20 clients, but you have a profit that enables you to live the life that you want. You're successful. You don't actually have to have 200. So that's also something that people, I think misunderstand with business, is what is it? What is success to you? Because just making more and more sales can actually undermine a business, not improve it.
Have you heard of Ikigai?
The key guy.
Ikigai.
Oh, Ikigai, yes. Yes, it's a lovely concept.
Yes, it's one of the, it's really a great way to actually evaluate where you are on your mission, on your vocation, on what you actually want in your business and your personal life. And definitely something I'd suggest that people just, run through to align those things, because you're so right. What does success mean to me? And I've often, especially, well, we're at the end of 2021 right now, and especially looking to the new year, it's a good time to sort of just reevaluate: am I on purpose? Am I on mission? What is the plan for next year? How does that look in terms of my Ikigai? Because it's a great way. It's actually like you set it up in a score format, and that number gives you an indication of where you're sitting, and really, really worth it. I don't know, you obviously have your own process within, because this sits within one of the 4 Ps, right? So do you do something similar?
Yes, yeah, very similar. I use a balance wheel.
Oh, cool.
But it's the same concept. It's the same concept, just going, how happy are you in these areas of your life? Can you get them to overlap? Because that's Ikigai, is that overlap of purpose and you.
Yeah.
And what you are good at, and getting that sweet point in the middle where you are working at something you're good at and something you love that gives you purpose, that gives you a life that you want to live. And that's the same thing. So the balance wheel is very similar. It's just going, how happy am I in my relationships, in my home life, in my leisure time? How happy am I with where my business is? How do I define that success? That sort of thing. It's definitely part of the process, part of the purpose process, because I think that's the thing. We were talking about how fluffy purpose is earlier. It's very difficult to throw one simple purpose at your business. You've got to know yourself quite well to know why you would be driven to do something. And I think you've also got to just accept who you are in that thing as well, because people are different and not everyone is going to be as humane and esoteric as the next person. We want to sound like we all are, but some people are not. Some people have opened a business purely for their own success, and that's fine, as long as you're running it correctly and legally and looking after your employees. If that is what drives you, as long as you're creating something that works, that's fine. But you need to understand that if you're trying to be something you're not, I'm generally speaking not a very materialistic person, and if I'm going to focus on the sales in my business or how much money we're making, it's not going to work. It's not what I'm doing. It's just not enough for me. The money side of things is just, it's nice to make money. It's nice to have the cash in the bank, and we obviously need money for living expenses, but it's not enough for me. If all I'm doing is putting more money in the bank, I'm going to get bored very quickly. I personally need to know that I have done something worth getting me out of bed, which is to improve the lives of someone around me in some way. And I'm personally very passionate about business and business owners. So what I want to know is that I helped another business owner have a better day. That's what drives me.
Yeah.
But it's taken me a while to recognize that in me,
Recently, I saw a post of a friend who gave me a different thought process around business to business marketing now, and even though this seems like it's outside, but it's really in line with what you're saying. I think a lot of business owners, especially that are really keyed into their purpose, no matter what it may be, without judgment on that, that know what they're doing, they know why they're doing it, and a lot of them are actually in to create some form of change. They're changing and they're revolutionizing something. And obviously the purpose of a business is to make profit. It is to make money. So with that all in mind, people that are business owners, and now you're trying to market to them, you actually got to take in purpose into consideration now. It's not like there's like something like 1,500 businesses or more to every corporation, right? So like business itself, small business, small business is actually what I'm saying here. Small business, when we're marketing to them, when we're actually doing business to business marketing, we're actually marketing to the small business, because there's small and medium-sized businesses. There's so many more of them. And when we're trying to connect with them, we have to connect through purpose. And those are one of those big elements, because they are driven by other things that a corporation does not even have in their fiber. We're, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we're trying to change the way certain people think about many things. If you look at your business around burnout, that's exactly what you're doing, right? You're trying to shift people's perspective on it, or bring their awareness to it, and then help them navigate it so that it never happens again, and they can have amazing businesses that changes people's lives. And that is exactly, so that awareness of self is like so important. And I love this conversation. I really think we can never have enough that conversation around just why, what are you doing, why are you doing it, and is this aligned to where you want to take yourself to, where you see yourself eventually. It's so important. Tamryn, I wanted to just so talking about we've spoken a bit about process, we've spoken a bit about like setting up systems, and getting and the glue of all of that is really the purpose. Where do you see most businesses or most business owners? I mean, we're in a network of people. I'm sure you're evaluating it all the time. Where do you think we are as a group of people in terms of this? Are we like on the edge of burnout, or are we navigating this thing? I mean, what are you seeing?
Sure. I think it's quite a big question, but I think to be honest, that 90% of business owners are constantly circling burnout without realizing it. Just because whether you have spent some time doing introspection or not, whether you recognize your purpose or not, what you've created is yours. It's your baby. That business is very personal, even if you don't know why. Your business is a part of you. You've put a lot of time and effort. I often actually think of it as I don't have children yet, and I often think of my businesses as my children, because I've put the same, okay, mothers are going to hate me if I say this, so maybe not quite the same, but a similar amount of energy and life into building these. I've had my sleepless nights. I've worked through exhaustion. I've worked through tears. I've pushed way beyond what I thought I could. I've put myself in difficult positions to protect the business. A personal, I've put relationships aside that I probably shouldn't have to protect the business, because it's my child. It's a part of who I am. It's come from me, this idea, and it's got a lot of my identity linked to it. And because they're so important to us, because this is such a strong part of who we are, we tend to not be able to separate from it when it comes to stepping to taking time off, to looking after ourselves, and to separate from the business failures as well, because I think that's something business owners take very personally. Is if the business is not doing well, it must mean that you did something wrong, but that's not necessarily true. You can do everything right and a business can fail if the circumstances surrounding it are bad. So I think all business owners, small business owners, and I actually want to circle back to what you were saying about small business owners later, but I think all small business owners are constantly playing with burnout, if not going through some phase of it. There is a difficulty, of course, in recognizing or in knowing what the difference is between stress and burnout, because stress can be quite good for you, weirdly enough. Stress makes us focus. It makes us perform at our best. When we've got a deadline or some looming penalty to not getting something done, we get it done. So stress can be quite good for a business, but that's only when it's temporary and when you are able to step back and relax afterwards. So I think we constantly go through these phases of maybe high stress periods, and then we're okay, and then we think that the next high stress period is normal, and we don't realize that we've attached the wrong meaning to it or the wrong purpose. So yeah, I think we play with burnout all the time, to be honest. And I liked what you said earlier about the small businesses being the bulk of our clients. Yes, I'm sure there are people listening who do work for corporates. So you've got some big corporations that are clients, but the majority of people selling services or products are selling to small businesses, because they do outnumber corporations by far. And what we forget when we deal with small business is we treat them like businesses, and we forget that there is an owner behind that business just like you. And that is actually your end client. That is the person you're appealing to. That was something I realized when I started adding the coaching side of things to my accounting business, because I realized that so many business owners were not equipped to build a business, and we started offering these support services. I looked around at what was available, because there are a lot of business coaches out there. There are hundreds of them, and there's some really good ones, you know. But the majority of them look at your business because that's what you ask them to do. You ask them to come in and evaluate your business and help you improve the business. And they do, because that's what they're good at. But I was like, there's more to it than that. I want the business to succeed, but this business was started by a person. And so I actually start with the person.
Yeah.
Why did you start this business? What do you want to get out of it? Because not everyone wants the same thing. You know, some people want a multi-million-dollar business. Some people just want to pay their bills and live comfortably. That, you know, if they can have a low stress existence somewhere that they're happy, that's fine. So your personal goals are what drive you to create a specific sort of business. And that is the type of business that I want to help you form. I don't want to help someone who wants a simple life. I don't want to help them build a corporation, because their life will never be simple.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of, it's the opposite of, so their business will thrive. You know, from a business coaching point of view, I can help you create a corporation. We can do that. We can make a international entity that is highly successful. But if it's not actually meeting your needs, what's the point? What's the point of building that?
100%. Tamryn, thank you so much for your time. You know, like there's so much in all of this that we need to talk about. And I think what we had a discussion offline before this, you know, that we're going to have something for people to just sort of engage with off the back of this interview and this conversation, because I think there's so much, you know, we can't stress enough how important it is to really just know who you are and what you want, especially for the now, if not like the future. And then taking the steps to break down the business in a meaningful way, so that you can actually turn it into something that is worthwhile. And when it says worthwhile, that could mean a bunch of things that you've clarified before, but just have that clarity. And if you've got clarity, then you've got a focus. You've got something that generates income, that serves you in the right way, and it's not this out of control beast that is just like taking up all of your life. I'll never forget moments with my wife who works as an employee, and then she was like, "You're working so hard, where's the money?" You know. And it's like, well, you know, you won't understand this, but not everything is about money necessarily. And, you know, you'll say that, but it doesn't make sense, because it's like a business. So like, business is supposed to make money. If it doesn't, then what are you doing? And if you're an entrepreneur, it's like, or this purpose-driven individual, it's like, no, I'm doing it because I love doing this, and I would do it even if I wasn't getting paid for it. But if you're not getting paid, how are you going to live? And, you know, it's just this rigmarole of stuff that just gets very confusing sometimes. But if you're making money, and there is a lot of purpose in there, there's a lot of stuff that you can do to support people and make money together, especially where we're in this, like, which we didn't get to talk about, collaborative world that we're in. So I've actually got something for you that I'm not going to like completely put it out, because I still got to suggest it to you, but perhaps what we could do is have something that people could use to really start to shift the way they're thinking, and start to really check whether they're in this burnout space, because like you said, you might be oscillating, you know, between I'm feeling great and and oh flip, it's all over. You know, like, and I guess as entrepreneurs, as business owners, even as entrepreneurs, we're gonna have that sway, you know, there's always going to be that thing we're navigating. So I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for this. It was really, really enlightening.
It was so much fun. Thank you for having me, Marlon.
Oh, awesome. So you're cool with we're gonna do something. We don't know exactly what, but it'll come out. Probably
we'll come up with something.
in and around this. I got some ideas I will share with you. But I really enjoyed this conversation, and look forward. So what do you have sort of planned for 2022? What can people sort of look out for in the space of really helping, that you can help people sort of navigate this world of burnout and making sure that people do not get into burnout in 2022?
Well, I am, up until now, I've been doing the burnout coaching mainly with my existing accounting clients, when I see what they're doing. And it's a recent thing for me to go, actually, this is something that so many people need. So 2022 is probably, I'd say, my official launch of this program.
Wow.
So, and I'm gonna start trying to do things like social media more seriously. I tend to do more scrolling than using of social media. So you can look forward to seeing more of me on social media. I'm hoping to create some little videos that will be helpful, point people in the right direction, think about the right things, questions that they can ask in their business, things like that. And yeah, I want to start providing as much education and knowledge as I can around this space. So that is my goal for 2022, is to make people aware. Exactly what you say is that thing that we can create maybe together as well, on how do you know if you are just stressed or you're burning out, or where you are in this burnout process, and how do you then begin to turn it around? What do you need? What are your first steps? That is my focus for the beginning of 2022, is to start sharing the knowledge around these things so that people become more aware in themselves as well. They go, oh wait, that's what I'm battling with. That's what the problem is. That's where this sense of overwhelm and exhaustion is coming from, and be able to provide them with the tools that they need to fix it. So.
Oh, brilliant. Looking forward to it. So once that is up, we're definitely gonna share the links in and around this podcast or this video. So please feel free, connect with Tamryn, and yeah, let's help each other escape. Well, not escape, just like navigate this thing. I know, just as a side note, I know of a friend who every quarter, without a doubt, takes time off, and they take, like, I think they do about 2 weeks, whether they can afford it or not. No matter what's happening in the business, it's like diarized time. I am taking 2 weeks off. 2 weeks out of 3 months is really not much time, and that's just like completely time out from everything, and might even be from the kids as well, so it's like, so everybody just gets the back seat, and it's just like time for him. So that was really insightful method of how to just like make sure you just kind of stay sharp and keep the creative juices flowing.
I have to jump in there. I just want to say, because you said whether he can afford it or not. And I actually have a blog post you can find it on the pharsyde.co.za, that says, you think you can't afford your time off, but you actually can't afford not to take it off. We think that we have to be working to generate income, especially if the business is not doing so well at the time, but actually that time off is so valuable. It's an investment. It's not a cost. It's not something you're being frivolous with. So yes, he definitely he can afford to take that time off. He needs to.
100%. Thanks again, Tamryn. We will connect soon, I'm sure.
Thanks, Marlon. Thank you so much.